Good evening. Welcome to this evening's Anxiety Live Q&A with me, Tim Box. I'm a Remedial Hypnotist, I'm a mind coach, and I'm an anxiety specialist. I help people get the other side of their anxiety issues. That's what I do every day for a living, and I run this YouTube channel, which is designed to add a little bit more information and just see if we can help a few more people with anxiety issues. As you can probably tell, the big news for me this week, I've got a cold. So any anxiety advice will be delivered in a slightly deeper voice than usual. Or if you were on, if you're a member of the channel and you were on the Wednesday live stream, perhaps a slightly sexier voice than usual, it was suggested. Now, that's not me saying that, that's other people. And also with the odd cough in the middle of speaking. But anyway, I hope you're well. I hope you're having a good week. I hope you're looking forward to a good weekend. My job here tonight is to answer your questions about anxiety, see if we can't get it under control a little bit, reduce it a little bit, all that sort of thing. I have questions that I can answer that have been left on my videos during the week. But normally, these days, certainly anyway, the whole half hour, 45 minutes of these lives tend to be filled with you guys asking me questions in the room on the night, which is kind of what I prefer because you've turned up and you've showed up and you're here. You can talk directly to me, so to speak. So yeah, ask me your questions. And if you haven't got any questions, at least say hello so we can sort of say hello to everyone in the room. Right. All that being done, then that's the intro over. Let me just say a few hellos then. Hello, Diane. Hello, Nogard. Hello, Paul. Hello, Carlos, Loz, Andrea, Sally, Kerry, everyone, good evening. I can see there's some comments been put in the comments already. I will work my way through them. If I go a little bit quiet, it's because I'm reading some, and then I might put some on the screen and answer them. But a lot of it's people saying hello. Diane's going to drop in and out. That's okay, just as you need. That's what we're here for. It's live. Just drop in and out as you need to. Paul, I am feeling a little bit better than Wednesday. I was feeling crap on Wednesday. You know, when you're like right in the midst of the cold seems to be at its peak. And I felt a little bit like it was the end of the day as well, as it is now. But I feel a little bit better. I've taken some of my own advice. I had a nap this afternoon and I feel a little bit more energized as a result. Anyway, evening, Loz. Right, Carlos as well. Hi. Right, let me. No, God's got a question here. Let me put this on the screen. Tim, if you treated any patient with video game addiction, what's your opinion on the subject? Do you think it may be a thing, potentially future high anxiety? If so, how? Right. Yeah. Okay. First thing to say, I don't treat patients. I work with clients. It's a big distinction. The word to treat somebody is a protected term. I know this is like the part of the question you really don't want me to focus on, but I'll just get it out the way first, okay? Medical practitioners treat people and they see patients. I am what we call a lay practitioner, so I'm trained in hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and everything that I do comes from a lay person's perspective. So I work with clients rather than treat patients. But anyway, video game addiction. I have worked with clients for social media addiction, but not so much with video game addiction. I don't think that's because it isn't a problem, though. I think that's just because it's probably not something that people come to me to get help with. Now, I absolutely could help people with it because everything that's going on, people, is a pattern of thought. It's a subconscious strategy, emotional strategy. So when I've treated many addictions, I've used the word now. I've worked with many addictions, by the way, and the key to sorting out an addiction is to work out why we need what we're seeking from that particular stimulus, if you like. And oftentimes it's not the activity or the substance we're addicted to. It's the dopamine hit that we get from engaging in it. So what tends to happen is we feel some sort of shortage in stimulus or something like that, and we fill that gap. Okay, so a lot of the time it can be what are we missing that requires this thing that's now become out of control. Yeah, but I think video game addiction is potentially a very a very concerning. I'd say concerning. I don't think concerning like something we need to be really, really worried about. But I think there's a lot of people who deal with that. But you could argue until it becomes negatively intrusive in your life, it's a pursuit rather than addiction. Yeah, addictions the distinction we tend to give them are things that have now become yeah, the negative in your life, that they're getting in the way of you living what you would regard to be a normal, healthy life. If you are like a gamer who is making a living from playing games, then probably you'd say, well, no, I'm just working right now. I'm not addicted to video games. This is what I do for a living. You know, there's a lot of YouTube channels making good money with by broadcasting their gaming. But yeah, I think when it starts to interfere in your life, that's when we might classify it as an addiction, or certainly a negative habit that's got out of control. But yeah, I think it is potentially a thing, very much so. And I think in terms of fueling anxiety, all these things are interrelated. Yeah, and talking from a therapist's perspective, I was talking about this today with my practitioners, actually, because we were running one of our monthly forums, and it was remarked upon how we have a specialist topic that we cover. So, for example, this month we're talking about trauma, and last month I think it was self-esteem issues and things like that. But we very quickly realized that it's not like we see clients for one of these things. We see clients for a whole range of them because they're very much interwoven. So I think when it comes to like any potential addictions fueling anxiety, there can be loads of reasons why they fuel anxiety, and there can be addictions can be a response to anxiety as well, where we feel a negative emotion, so we try and counteract it with a positive one, with something that we find a positive emotion, you know, the sort of comfort strategy, if you like. So I think they're all interwoven, and yeah, potentially anything that we might consider like epidemic level proportions in terms of a trend. So, you know, social media is the one that I've seen people, but video gaming could fall into the same category. Yeah, could be fueling high anxiety simply because people are kind of no longer dealing with their issues head on. They might be retreating from them. And if you're existing in a video game world, you might lose the skills of, you know, of interacting in the real world. It might start to become scary to interact in the real world. I mean, I think that is the obvious thing that I would be thinking of if somebody came to me with like agoraphobia, and they told me that they play video games all day, every day. You might think, well, there's certainly a failure to interact with the outside world there, and maybe that's why it seems a lot scarier than it needs to, you know. But good question. And I think, you know, I wonder if I will start to see more video game addiction people, but I think I don't, because I generally now, because of doing the TED Talk, because of this channel, I'm, you know, the 95% of the clients I see when I say, what are we here to work on, it is just anxiety. That's the answer to that question, my anxiety. Yeah. Now there may be, as we say, attached issues around it, but I think the people that are saying, oh my God, I need to get rid of this video game addiction, they're probably not hunting for Tim Box. They're probably hunting for somebody who's got on their website, I deal with video game addictions, you know. So that's probably why I'm not seeing as many. I mean, that sort of answers the question, though. It's a good question. Good thought as well. Andrea, you've got a double-barreled one here. Let me put this one up. I've struggled with an intrusive thought for over 2 years. It used to be only a worried kind of thought. What if I do something bad, aka hurt someone? Now it's like, hurt this person, do it. So it gives me a ton of pain because it used to be a worry thought. Now it's more like a command thought. It hurts and scares me. Thank you for what you do. Okay, Andrea. Right, intrusive thoughts. Yeah, this is, I feel for you. I really do. I feel for you. I'm sorry you're going through that. I tell you what it is, though. It's really easy to confuse quite well, intrusive is the only word I've got for it, you know, like quite aggressively intrusive thoughts for commands. Yeah. We have a thought and we think, right, it's bad that I should think that thought. There's something wrong with me for thinking that thought. You know, and the thought you described here is exactly the sort of thing we might be talking about. We have a thought like, what if I hurt this person? Then we think, oh no, wait a minute, that's terrible that I should be having this thought. Yeah. But I'll describe it to you like this. And I don't know if you've seen any of these lives before or heard me talk about intrusive thoughts, but I very much think of intrusive thoughts like the trailers for movies that we probably don't want to see. Okay, like in the same way that when we go to a film, we see all the trailers for other films before, and we'll look at some of them and we'll think, that looks great, I'm going to see that. And then others we look at and we think, oh my God, that's just, why would anyone want to go to a cinema and watch that? Yeah. And the negative intrusive thoughts are just those things that your mind has to do. Yeah. Because you got to realize that there's a bit of your mind, you know, your subconscious is constantly fathoming what would be the right or the wrong move right now. So it has to conceptualize every possible eventuality. Now, normally that goes on in the background without you being consciously aware of it. You know, what's the example we used before? We walk over a bridge and we imagine what it would be like if we jumped over the edge of the bridge. And we think, oh no, do I want to kill myself? I don't want to. Why am I thinking that? Because your mind has to conceptualize what would happen so that it knows not to do it. Yeah. And a lot of them are so obvious, they don't trouble your subconscious, doesn't trouble your conscious with them because it's dismissed without any second examination. You know, and probably the first time, you know, the whole what if I hurt this person, it's more like a, hey, don't do this because this would be the result. Yeah. But then you think, well, why am I having this thought? And suddenly you've put your conscious focus on it. So now whenever that thought flits through your mind in terms of something you're going to probably reject, your mind brings it into your conscious awareness because now it's a troubling thought. Now there's some level of threat attached to that thought because you've sort of isolated it as a potential bad thing. So as that means that it's going to be a recurring thought now, because that bit of your subconscious, whose job it is to rattle through these things and dismiss some and put others forward, says, oh, I think you need to know this one, don't you? Because this is a concern that you're having this thought again. Yeah. And it gets to the point, I totally agree. It gets to the point where it starts to feel like there's a bit of you just pushing you to do it. It's like, actually do it, then do it. But really, it's kind of just saying that this is so, it's become so urgent, the thought, and so threatening that it dominates everything. Yeah. Now, the good news here is the fact it disturbs you is actually good, because it's only disturbing you because it's so other to your nature. It's disturbing you because you don't want to do it. Yeah. And even when that bit's saying hurt this person, or that's how you're perceiving it to be, that is not what you want to do. So it's disturbing you because, hey, I don't want to do that. Yeah. So that's the good news, is that you are still, you know, and you always will be, of sound enough mind to say, well, obviously that's not what I want to do. And I think what will happen here is that, Andrea, that when you stop focusing on that thought and fearing that thought, your subconscious will stop having to bring it forward because it will no longer be a concern. Yeah. And I think the best thing we can do with intrusive thoughts is that thing of treating them like trailers for movies that we don't want to see. They can be there. They're fine. Show me them all you like. Doesn't mean I'm going to go and see the movie. Sometimes trailers seem very insistent that you should go and see this movie. Sometimes other people tell you it's a great movie, you should go and see it. If it's not your cup of tea, don't feel like you have to engage in it. And that's what I would be saying there. I hope that makes some sort of sense. And I hope it sounds right, my croaky throat as well. You're hearing me okay. Diane, Tim, you're not well today. Well, I've got a sore throat. Let's not make a sweeping statement, Diane. No, I'm not well. You're right. Right. Let me go to Carlos here. Oh no, God said I reached 7K subs finally. Yeah, finally. Oh, it's a arduous. It's a very steady climb the ladder on YouTube. I'm finding 7K, 7,000 subscribers. But if you're watching this, you haven't subscribed, please subscribe because that helps. Hi Tim. Today I'm so anxious. Even if I don't know why, I find myself scanning for derealization and my mind is scanning for any threat, any tips. I suppose it's for my driving lesson and the stress of them. Well, Carlos, so those of you that aren't in the members area, Carlos is going through driving lessons at the moment, and he's finding them challenging, but he's doing it fantastically well. And this is the thing, Carlos. I know that derealization has been the thing that has been your indicator of anxiety. Like when you get really anxious, you feel detached, you feel that dissociation. That's inevitable. That at times your mind is still going to be scanning for that. Whenever you feel a bit challenged, there's going to be that bit of you that says, oh, I wonder if this is now leading to that next level of anxiety that I fear. And again, the trick here is to realize that that's a derealization. As much as it feels freaking horrible, it's a perfectly natural response. It's a dissociation is how we protect ourselves from uncomfortable feelings and emotions and experiences. So it's your system doing a fairly effective job at trying to protect you from this. Of course, the problem there is that it now has become the thing you fear most. So you potentially create that feedback loop. Yeah, you feel anxious and then you fear the symptoms of anxiety or the sensations that come with anxiety. So you get more anxious about them and create them. And then as you create them, you get more and more anxious, that kind of thing. But the thing that you can do is just accept that this is natural, because when we accept it as natural and we stop fearing the sensations, then they don't arise, because we're no longer hitting that threat response. Yeah. And I know we've said this a few times, but I think it bears repeating. It bears reminding ourselves that none of this is anything you need to fear. You don't need to fear feeling derealized. And even when it comes to driving lessons, you'll still be able to, your mind isn't trying to dissociate to put you in any danger. It's there to protect you. So it won't do it to the degree where you can't function. Yeah. I think that's what people miss as well when it comes to that kind of sensation. They fear that they're so dissociated that they can't interact with the real world, when actually you are doing all the time. Yeah. And I think you've got to give yourself the credit for that. Recognize that you're not going to suddenly become debilitated and unable to interact. Yeah. Our fear might encourage us to stop interacting, but ultimately, when we decide to, we'll find that we can still, but yeah, if that's helpful, I hope that's helpful for you. The Brennans. Let me put this one up. Anybody get really dizzy? Like, I've been so dizzy, I stopped Prozac 6 months ago, and now I'm dizzy with headaches like every day. I drink a ton of water. I eat well. Yeah, okay. Well, dizziness can be a sensation that comes with feeling anxious. I can't comment on Prozac. I don't know anything about meds, so please don't ask me to comment on that. With headaches, and you're drinking loads of water, you're eating well. With all of this stuff, I tend to be saying to people, well, look, anything you feel medically unsure about, go to the doctor. I know a lot of people talk about health anxiety, and they say, well, you shouldn't feed the health anxiety. You should, you shouldn't be Googling. You shouldn't be going to the doctor. I'm like, see your doctor and get the all clear. Get the doctor to, either explain why it's happening, or if the doctor can't explain why it's happening, accept that probably now it's a result of your over focusing on those potential sensations. I know symptoms is the word you want me to use there, but let's call them sensations rather than symptoms. And yeah, I would suspect that if the doctor says, yeah, there's nothing wrong there, there's nothing you need to worry about, then it is just now that you're focusing on them too much. I went through a phase of not necessarily directly dizziness, but certainly a bit of dissociation and feeling just really weird after I had my health issue in January last year. And it was because I was, without realizing it, creating a hyper focus on how I felt from moment to moment. And as a result, you zoom in on something with a magnifying glass, or a microscope, you can make a speck of dust look like a monster. And I think that's a lot what happens to us, is we get so focused on how we feel that we try and consciously pay attention to things. And that can create dizziness as well. If we're examining our perception as we go around doing things, we potentially create a dizziness in ourselves, but that's the best I've got on that one. I think regarding dizziness is to recognize that if the doctor says, hey, there's nothing wrong there, there's no balance issue, there's no inner ear issue, all that sort of stuff that doctors say when we're dizzy, then recognize it's probably just an over focus on it, and recognize that you're not threatened by this. It's just a sensation. It's an unpleasant one. I get that totally. But when we stop focusing on it, we tend to stop creating or exacerbating it, probably is the better way of putting it, I hope that's helpful. Okay, Will. I try my best to accept anxiety and think I'm doing a pretty good job. However, I keep on feeling the same way every day, which has me thinking I'm doing something wrong by continuing to feel the same. When you say feeling the same way, I mean, that you'd probably, if I was talking to you as a client, I'd want to know exactly how you're feeling then. And here's the thing, accepting anxiety. Too many people accept anxiety as a route to get rid of anxiety. And that's not accepting it. Yeah, that's the opposite of accepting it. It's doing something as a way of changing it. Accepting anxiety is accepting that it's okay to feel anxious. There's nothing wrong with feeling anxious. Even when we feel a certain way that we think isn't appropriate or suggests that we're excessively anxious, inappropriately so for the circumstances. If we can say, but that's okay, because you know what? My mind is going to make mistakes at times. That's all right. So it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me here. It just means I'm feeling more anxious than I would ideally like to. So if we can properly accept it, then accepting it would be that I don't even know whether I'm feeling the same every day, because I'm not analyzing this anymore. I'm not scanning for it. when we stop doing the scanning, that's when we've actually accepted it. Yeah. And I don't mean accepting that you're going to feel crappy every day. I mean accepting that it's okay to feel anxious and it's okay to feel the way you feel. So, like, put it this way, I'm feeling pretty rough at the moment because I've got a cold. Now, I'm not constantly every moment of every day analyzing how I feel because I don't think I need to. Yeah, there's no threat coming from how I feel. I don't feel good, but where I'm not analyzing it, I'm not exacerbating it either. So my day hasn't been too bad, even though I'm full of cold, because I'm not. And again, I'm not saying that, oh, I've found the secret and this is how I do it. Nobody is analyzing how they feel from moment to moment when they've got a cold because they're like, I know the reason, I've got a cold. What happens when we experience high anxiety is we want to get rid of it. So we're constantly scanning for it to see if it's still there. And as a result, we are exacerbating the anxiety because that's an anxious activity to do, is to scan for our anxiety, if that makes sense. So, so I compare it to having a cold because nobody scans themselves moment to moment when they've got a cold because they know at some point they keep taking their meds, they know they'll feel better. Probably the only time you decide how you feel is when somebody says, how are you feeling today? Is your cold a bit better? And you go, yeah, I suppose a bit better than it was yesterday. I suppose I've noticed it as much as I did maybe. We only notice our cold when something, we cough or we have to blow our nose. With anxiety, when we're constantly scanning for it, we're creating that emotional impact that we're actually trying to avoid, which is doing the anxious thing. So I would suggest that's why it's not necessarily feeling different, because you're constantly checking in to see how you feel. And the way that, anxiety kind of thrives on your attention. That's the fuel that fires it. Yeah. When you stop giving it that attention, your mind gets on with doing something else a lot of the time, Paul, you're a trooper. I am a trooper. Thank you. I don't know about a trooper. I think because I didn't do because I technical issues or on my part. I think I failed technically last week. That's why I wasn't on last week. So I thought I've got to do this week. I can't miss 2 in a row. Kerry, let me have a look at what you put here. I'm still trying to move forward. I managed to go into town today and look in some shops, which is slight progress. However, the feelings of passing out came on so bad in the queue of a shop. I was, hang on, the second part to this, having to move about, tap myself, etc. I tried to carry on and go for a coffee, as was shaky, but the feelings didn't pass. Is it a case of keeping on going out and doing things? It can be, Kerry. But again, what you're talking about when you're saying going out and doing things, we're sort of talking about exposure therapy. Yeah, where we do the thing that challenges, we go into the situation that challenges us. And I'm not an exposure therapy expert, but as anyone that saw my video that was up, I think last week, about how sometimes therapies that are perfectly good therapies don't work, exposure on its own isn't enough. Because it's not simply, if you keep doing it and feel shaky and like you're passing out every time, that isn't going to just suddenly go away from doing it. Your job here is to learn that turns out I didn't faint. Turns out I did the thing and it wasn't life-threatening. I was fine. That's what we've got to do, is learn that the thing we are currently responding to as if it's a huge threat to us actually isn't a threat. Because then the next time you go to do it, your anticipatory anxiety will be lower, because a bit of you, instead of saying, oh, this could be life-threatening or this could be terrifying, is saying it might be a bit uncomfortable, but that's about it. Yeah, so your anticipatory anxiety reduces. Then when you do it again, what will happen is you will feel not as bad, not as faint and shaky, because you're no longer creating so much anticipatory anxiety. And as a result, you will have a better time than you had the last time. Then the next time you go and do it, your anticipatory anxiety will be in anticipation of something that actually isn't that bad. And you can see how it gradually lowers. That's what exposure is attempting to achieve, is teaching your subconscious that any fear that it had is unnecessary. And by the way, all of that feeling faint and shaky is a perfectly natural stress response, also known as fight or flight. Yeah, you go out, you think, right, I'm going to try going to the shops. And because you're perceiving going to the shops as the big challenge, you create the I don't want to say the sensation that you fear. So, Carlos was talking about derealization. That's my one that I don't like. Yeah. A lot of people talk about heart palpitations is the one they don't like, or muscle tension. Yeah. Or somebody else was saying about headaches. And your one is feeling faint and shaky. So when you examine you, the magnifying glass that you're using is to focus on how faint or shaky do I feel? And as a result, you zoom in on that and you create that particular sensation, yeah, as part of the threat response. So your job here, if you like, is not just to do it. It's to keep learning that, hey, look, it actually didn't take me out, did it? I was all right. Yeah. I noticed that story didn't end with, and I fainted and died. You know, it didn't. You did okay. You know, that would be my thoughts on that. I hope that helps. I'm going to go to Loz. Hello, Loz. I'm along my anxiety journey. I've educated myself and got a toolkit, but the habit of checking in for sensations when not mentally occupied is frustrating and a bad habit. Other frustration is, e.g., oh, hang on. When walking, if feel an unbalanced sensation and the adrenaline of fight or flight happens instantly, so you don't have time to even think, the ignore it thought and carry on. That instant reaction is frustrating. Yes. Okay. You got to remember though, your emotions are triggered in your subconscious. Your subconscious moves at the speed of thought. So to use our analogy of the captain and the crew, I know that many of you are au fait with this analogy, but if you're not, the idea here is that the analogy of your mind being like a ship, and the ship having a captain and a crew of the ship, the captain being your logical conscious part of you, the crew being the subconscious. And it's the crew that have their hands on the things that steer and sail your ship, which is your emotions. Okay, so your crew are triggering emotions according to where they think the ship should sail. And at the moment, your crew are like, okay, any unbalanced sensation. So that's your one, Loz, isn't it? Yeah, the unbalanced sensation. That's the one that your crew have got. You know, there's the guy in the crow's nest. They're looking out for any unbalanced sensations. And as soon as that occurs, he's announcing red alert. Yeah, battle stations or whatever it is. Yeah, so you go into fight or flight. Okay, now that's happening. That's not a conscious thing. And at the moment, your captain, you're consciously saying, okay, ignore it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But at the same time, your captain looks a bit scared about this as well. So the crew aren't necessarily saying, oh, captain says, don't worry about it. Your crew are like, oh, captain seems freaked out by this. He's saying, don't worry about it. But clearly there's something to worry about. Yeah. And I think that's what we've got to recognize, is that it's okay when your mind, your crew trigger that response. You don't need to fear that response, because it isn't going to sink the ship. The much better response here is for your captain to roll his eyes and think, they'll get it in a minute. They'll work it out in a minute. Let's just see how long it takes them to work it out that we're not sinking. Yeah, that's the kind of better response. I mean, somebody put it. I think I was watching one of Trey Jones's videos. Who's another online anxiety guy. And he was saying sometimes your subconscious needs a metaphorical hug from your conscious, rather than fearing what it's saying or beating yourself up or all those other responses that we do. It's about treating it like, treating your crew like frightened children here. They don't necessarily know everything they need to know. They're trying to desperately keep the ship afloat, but they don't realize that this is quite a robust, hardy ship that we are sailing, and there's very few waves that can take us out. Yeah. So I think, if I haven't extended that analogy too far there to the point of it just becoming meaningless, that's what I would say here, is that at the moment you're hyper scanning for that, and as a result, you're giving yourself a harder time than you need to, I think. Good evening, Matt. Good to see you. What's Carlos got there in response to Andrea? Hi, Andrea. I experienced your similar thoughts to the point I started to throw up too. What helped me a lot is it's to know thoughts are just thoughts. I still experience them, but let them pass, and do not focus on them. They will pass. Yeah, okay, that reminds me, Carl. Here's a good thing. Oh, hang on. Carl's got something here. Think of them like clouds. They come and they pass. That's a nice thought. I've seen that analogy before, actually, the idea that the clouds that come and go. I quite like that analogy. Here's what I would say, right? How do I word this? Let me think about that. Let me give me a minute. I'm a bit fuzzy from the cold, so let me think about this. So this is what I want to say, right? Um, your thoughts are not statements of facts, right? If that makes sense. A lot of us fear our thoughts because they're telling us something scary. Yeah. So when our subconscious kicks in with a response, such as becoming dizzy, becoming faint, getting a headache, when we have those physical sensations, it's because your mind has triggered a fight or flight response, and all of those weird associated sensations that come with the fight or flight response, when you fill with adrenaline suddenly, like instantly, we will all focus on the thing that we most fear about that response, if that makes sense. Okay. But this is not your crew stating facts. They're not saying we're going to sink, that's it. They're asking questions. They're asking, are we going to sink? Yeah, that's all it is. It's a fearful question rather than a malevolent statement of negative fact. Okay. So we should treat them as such. We can answer that question. We have that right. We have that ability to answer that question. And the thing that I want you all to know, everyone that I've spoken to on this live so far this evening, everything that you're experiencing is a transient sensation that comes with fight or flight response. It comes and it goes. You know how this story ends. What the sensation that you're involved in at the moment ends with it passing. Simple as that. So you don't really need to pay attention to it. You don't need to watch it as it comes and goes. Like Carlos is saying about the clouds. You know the clouds are going to pass by. Do you really need to watch them and check that they're gone? Probably not. And that's what I would that's what I want to say. Sorry, I took so long to think about that one. God, what you put here. Hang on. Oh. Loved your answer. I also love to have both you and I use. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I don't know why my camera's playing up. I hope it's not going to suddenly drop out. Yeah, exactly. We both use the same bloody. Oh, honestly, the things that I say, as in we don't use this word, we don't use it, and then before I know it, I'm using it again. Like symptoms I'm the worst one for that. I've made videos about how we shouldn't use the word symptoms because symptoms implies illness and we're not ill. Yeah. And yet, number of times, every single live, you'll hear me say the word symptom and have to correct myself. Unbelievable. Matt, what have you got there? I couldn't walk over a bridge or passport without wanting to end my life. I learned to go out for a walk with a cuppa so I would get myself to concentrate on not spilling my cuppa. Wow. Instead of wanting to end my life. Wow. So you focused on the little things, the little minutiae to get you through that. Wow. I'm so sorry to hear that, Matt, as well, that you were in that place. I'm really, I'm glad that you're still here and you're still chatting with us. I really am. That's awesome. Well done. Strawberry Polka Dot, good evening. Blory Gaming, good evening. I say good evening. I don't know where you guys are. You might be morning where you are, but it's evening here. So I'll say good evening. Right, I'm just checking where we are in comments just to see if I can get through all of these before we finish. Because I think hopefully you'll forgive me if I'm not going to do quite as long a live tonight. But hopefully I might be able to get through them. We'll see how we go. Omar, any tips on how to deal with feeling stuck in life? I've been unemployed for 3 years, now graduated 2020 at the peak of COVID, but now I'm here and time keeps on passing while the feeling of being stuck gets worse. Yeah, okay. First thing I'd say, Omar, there is no time limit on where you're going and what you're going to achieve. Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, I'm really tempted to come with my experience here. I didn't start doing this job. What am I, 51 now? I didn't start this until my late 30s because I've done 13 years, so nearly 40 in fact I was before I started doing this job. And it's easy for me to say, oh, I wish I'd started doing this sooner, but if I had, I wouldn't be the person I am now. I wouldn't have the life experience that I have now that I think is invaluable in what I do. And I don't think it's just I'm a therapist that life experience is invaluable. I think life experience is invaluable in whatever you do. All those transferable skills that we get from from the things we do in life. And Omar, I would just say, don't put a time limit on you getting somewhere or achieving something. this whole thing of you need to decide, you need to get it, you need to get moving, you need to get moving forward. I think it's just terrible. It's sort of borderline toxic as well, because all it does is it encourages us to feel like there's something wrong with us or we're not doing enough to get where we're going. Creates huge anxiety in people, anxiety about the future, about where they are and what they're going to achieve. Don't anyone that is currently in that position in life where they feel like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I really, my career path or my relationship or my life is in the right place. They won't tell you that it was something they worked out when they were younger. They'll tell you that it took many missteps to find the right path. Yeah. I'm very fortunate. I consider myself in a very good position now. I consider myself to have the best job in the world, to have the best wife in the world, and pretty much the life that I would want to have, albeit I'm still not living in a $65 million penthouse New York apartment that we were watching a video on last night. But you know what I mean? The only thing I would say is I'd like to be a little bit more affluent, but apart from that, the journey I'm taking to get there as well, I'm sort of happy with that, So I think I'm very fortunate. But here I am at 51 saying this. I don't know how old you are, Omar, but I tell you what, when I was younger, Jesus Christ, there's so many steps I took. And I do look back on sometimes and think, oh, why did I do that? But I don't regret doing things or not doing things, as it were. It's just part of your journey. I'll tell you something, Omar, at some point you'll be telling people your story and how you got to where you're very comfortable, you're very happy where you are. And it will include these 3 years or maybe more years as well of just not really knowing where you're going or not getting somewhere, By the way, I was unemployed for about a decade. Yeah, which I'm not proud of. If you were to ask me then, I was a semi-professional musician. In other words, I was in a band trying to get famous. Did that for 10 years, just signing on as well. So I'm not proud of it, but I did it, and it's part of who I am. My journey and everything. So just don't put pressure on yourself, mate. That's the best advice I can give you. I'm not a career advisor, so take my career advice with a pinch of salt. I wouldn't say everyone follow my path, but I would say it teaches you don't have to pressurize yourself to get to a certain place at a certain time. When you find the thing that is your passion, it's surprising how quickly you get where you need to go with it. It's surprising. I didn't find this for a long time, as I say, and I thought I was a lazy person before I found what I do now, because I just didn't, but I wasn't motivated by anything I was doing. I wasn't excited by it. Then when I found this, turns out I'm not lazy at all. I've got a lot of energy for what I do. I'll even go on a Friday night and do a live stream when I've got a cold, but until you find it, you don't know what it is. So, but don't put pressure, because when you do find it, you'll absolutely go like a rocket, Hope that helps. Glory Gaming, you got one here. Let me put this one up. I'm suffering from thoughts that what if someone noticed I'm anxious and he would say like he's a weird person or crazy or something like this. You know what? Welcome to my world when I was younger as well. That was absolutely what I was terrified of, because you may know that I had a whole load of social anxiety going on when I was younger. And that was a huge concern of mine. What if people notice how I'm feeling? What if people notice I feel uncomfortable? Yeah. Couple of things I would say here. First of all, if other people notice you're anxious and they think you're weird, who cares? Yeah. And I don't know whether you're in a position in life where that advice can resonate with you or not, but I tell you something, at some point you'll get it. Yeah. Who the F cares? I was watching Stranger Things season 2 the other day. And if you know Stranger Things, little Will Byers is the one that gets lost in the Upside Down. Anyway, and he's in the first season of Stranger Things, he is pronounced dead, missing, and all that sort of thing. And then he suddenly appears, and they start calling him Zombie Boy at school because he's the boy that came back from the dead. And he's getting bullied for it. And his brother Jonathan sits him down, and he says, I feel like a freak. And his brother says, yeah, you are a freak. And he's like, what? And he said, yeah, I'm a freak as well. He's like, that's a good thing. You want to be like everyone else. You want to be like the people who are bullying you. I don't want to be like them. And he makes the point that nobody normal ever achieved anything of any note anyway. It's only the weirdos and the freaks that do the amazing stuff. So first of all, if people think you're weird, that's fine. Be weird. Second of all, people are far less concerned with what's going on with you than you realize, because they're concerned with their own shit and what's going on with them. Yeah, there's one thing I can guarantee. Even that person in the group who seems super confident and, you know, gregarious and is the outgoing one is still absolutely terrified that people are going to judge him negatively. Yeah. So they're not bothered about whether you're coming across weird or not. They're bothered about whether they're coming across weird or not. Yeah. So people are far less interested in what's going on with you than you think. You know, with the best will in the world, the most inspiring message I ever heard was something my wife said once. Brit, she said, ultimately she worked out at some point that nothing matters and nobody cares. Yeah, which doesn't sound very inspiring on the face of it, but the idea was that what you're about to do, worried about how people will judge you, it doesn't actually matter in the long scheme of things. You know, we've been on this planet for, you know, a click of a fingers compared to the life of this planet, and the thing that we do today we'll never remember in a year's time, and no one else will. Yeah, so nothing actually matters that we're doing here, and nobody cares what you're doing anyway. So do what you want to do, be who you want to be. It's only you got to keep happy. You know, I hope that's helpful though. I hope that's helpful. Loz, you come back on what we were talking about a minute ago. My hormones can make me feel unbalanced, stroke dizzy. So this can be another reason for it. Then we become anxious about it. Horrible cycle, as you can't do much for the hormonal roller coaster apart from ride. That's exactly it, Loz. And I think, but take out the it's a horrible cycle bit and you've got your answer there. Yeah, hormones can make you feel that way. So you don't have to pay attention to it. It's not like you have to think, oh no, what's going wrong with me? It's not even like you think, am I going to die? Or is this it's like, yeah, I know, it's hormones. Okay. So let's just accept that that's how I feel. It's like feeling, some days we feel energized, some days we don't. You know, if I'm feeling really sluggish and tired, oh yeah, I didn't get as much sleep last night, did I? We don't need to analyze it. We don't need to examine or wonder what the consequences are going to be of the way we feel right now. Because as we know, 99.999 recurring % of the time, the consequences are nothing or minimal. So you're right. It is a horrible cycle, but the fact you have answers to the why question means that you don't have to fear it, you know? But it's good that you recognize it. That's like the first step, isn't it? Recognizing, hey, this is why. So I can now take the next step of detaching any concern about it. Mac. Hey, Tim, I'm wondering how you feel about treating anxiety and depression with CBD oil, and also more to the fact that they treat mental health with I should know how to pronounce that word. I feel like I should have seen it before. I don't know that word. Treat it with CBD oil. Yeah, I've got no opinion on that. I've got no opinion on that. I feel a lot of people swear by CBD oil, don't they? I know nothing about it. I'm so sorry. I don't know anything about it. And I don't know of any. I'm not really a supplements or a medication person. So my whole thing is working with your subconscious patterns of thought and response. That's my whole thing. And as with any tool, though, as with any sort of supplement or something like that, if you're finding benefit from it, great. That's awesome stuff. I'm not here to sort of dismiss something that works for somebody. Yeah. But I hear good things. I hear good things about CBD oil in terms of calming the physical sensations. Yeah. I don't necessarily think CBD oil does anything psychologically, except maybe as a, you know, it is that placebo effect, isn't it? Of the, okay, I've got something now that can help me. So as a result, we feel a little bit less anxious about what we're going through because I've got my CBD oil. That can be great, but it's gonna work with the physical sensations rather than the psychological elements of it, I think, mainly. But, you know, tell me more. And people that have used it, maybe, I don't know. But apologies if that's a bit of a crap answer to that one, Max. Sorry about that. Kerry, yes, keep going. You got this. You got this. Svetliachok. Sorry, I'm so crap at pronouncing things that aren't just basic English words, aren't they? How to stop constantly focusing on the symptoms if my brain is so used to it, I can't stop checking in. Right. Again, there's if you were talking to a CBT practitioner or cognitive behavioral therapist, you'd be talking about interrupting the patterns of thought and challenging the thoughts and things like that. For me, we stop checking in when we stop regarding them as a threat. Yeah. You stop analyzing your physical sensations when you stop regarding them as any sort of threat. So the work to do here is to realize that, hang on, it doesn't matter how I feel. This ain't going to take me out. It can't damage, hurt, kill me. These are just physical sensations. They might feel uncomfortable. And yet in life, we instigate those physical sensations when we're doing something exciting or thrilling or scary. We do it deliberately. So the physical sensations aren't actually themselves anything to feel bad about. It's only the fact that we think they mean something negative that we keep checking in and checking for them. If I said to you, there's an intruder in your house, but don't look for them. You'd be like, what? Of course I'm going to look for them. There's an intruder in my house. They might kill me. They might steal all my stuff. I need to get them out of my house. But if you were saying like, oh, your mum's come round, by the way, she's in the kitchen, I probably wouldn't feel the need to go into the kitchen and check she's there because I'm happy that my mum's there. I'm just like mum or intruder. They're the two ends of the spectrum there. But what I mean is when we start to treat the way we're feeling as nothing to concern us, we stop focusing in on it so intently because it doesn't pose any threat to us. And that's the journey. It's not about what do you need to do? What actions do you need to take? It's a shift in understanding that needs to occur. Your brain is doing it automatically because it regards those sensations as threatening. When it stops regarding them as such, it just won't happen. Yeah. That's why they talk about acceptance, by the way. Yeah. We accept them. We stop having to check for them. Kerry. I hear a lot of talk about how it passes, although mine seems to continue to some degree and comes back a lot even at home. Doesn't mean it won't come and go, Kerry. Even the feelings of calmness and feeling fine will come and go. That's a fact. They don't just, it's not like, they'll come and go. Yeah. But ultimately, when we stop paying attention to them, they'll come a lot less and they'll go a lot more. It will gradually ease up because we're getting used to the fact now that, oh yeah, it doesn't actually do me any harm. I come out the other side of it. And I think Kerry, it only happens at home. This is the thing, it's that sort of false perception, isn't it? That there's something about the outside that makes it happen more than the inside. When actually it's only happening outside because that's when you feel challenged. That's when you're not in your safe zone. But yeah, absolutely, as you say, can also happen a lot at home. Yeah, because we're hyper scanning again. We're hyper fixating on those sensations. So it's not about whether we're outside or inside. It's about how we perceive and how we treat and how we regard these sensations. Oh, look, my wife's she was watching when I said she was the best wife, and she said I'm the best husband. She's so kind, flattering. Mac, semi-professional musician. What band? Oh, one day I will share my band because there's stuff on us out there. Somebody will find it at some point. I suppose, but hi, Super Brit. Oh, Paul, that's very kind what you said there. Appreciate that. Mac, right, you come back. Magic mushrooms. Okay. So you said magic mushrooms. I don't know what you meant. Okay. Okay. For magic mushrooms wise. Oh, again, I've never done magic mushrooms. Okay. And that's not just me being like diplomatic. I never have. Okay. So I can't talk from personal experience. One thing I would say though, magic mushrooms so I think magic mushrooms are designed to like calm you down, aren't they? Or they're meant to give you like slightly psychedelic hallucinogenic experiences. I would suggest working with anything that's hallucinatory or hallucinogenic, should I say, it's just a bad idea when dealing with anxiety, because I've seen enough people who using something hallucinogenic or using a drug has been the thing that kickstarted all of their anxiety, because it created that confusion in their subconscious, not because the drug broke their brain or anything like that, but simply because the experience was too confusing for their subconscious to just happily file it away under, well, that was weird, wasn't it? Now, yeah, like 99.999 recurring % of the time, a drug experience is just that. It's an experience and then you move on. But occasionally a bit of you maybe has some sort of physical response to it, like a panic or something like that. And then, of course, if we have a panic and it's whilst we're in a sort of drug state, then that might appear worse than it needs to. Yeah, and I'm not saying this to scare people. I'm trying to do the exact opposite. I'm trying to say that this is a very natural reaction to a confusing experience. Yeah, but a confusing experience can very very quickly feel like a traumatic experience if it starts to take on a darker tone. So that's why I wouldn't recommend that sort of stuff, but only because I've seen people who have told me that that's where it all started for them, you know. So anyway, right, Ben, it's okay that you're late, mate. Although to be fair, we're just finishing up now because we're 51 minutes in and my throat is just about to give way. I think that's as much as I can do, I'm afraid. But we did get to the bottom of the questions, so I'm pleased about that. If you're still with me, please hit the like button and share the video if this has been of use to you. You can also become a member of the channel if you like what I talk about, if you feel it's a benefit to you. Excuse me. If you do that, you'll get access to over 100 extra videos. You will also get an extra live stream every week. We do a Wednesday live stream where inevitably I do feel we get to talk about things in a bit more detail and get to have a bit more interaction back and forth because it's a smaller group and we get to chat a bit more. But and you also, if you wish to, you can become a member of the Facebook group. That comes with as a privilege of membership as well. So that's where we can chat with each other and just connect with each other. But before I collapse on the floor, coughing my guts up, I'm just going to say, look, have a great weekend, everyone. Remember to take time for you. Remember to take time to relax. Always remember, as I always say, be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.